This is the Barbecue Central Radio Show, which is recorded live each Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Barbecue Central Radio Show is being brought to you by The Barbecue Guru, the original creators of automatic temperature control devices, now offering 4 different models for you to choose from. Rest easy knowing that The Barbecue Guru is controlling your pit temperature so you can get on with your life. Visit bbqguru.com or call 800-288-GURU for more information. And by Fred's Music and Tasty Licks BBQ Supply, your online barbecue and grilling superstore. From cookers to grills, wood chips and chunks, and everything in between. Also be sure to try the Tasty Licks barbecue brand of rubs and sauces. Check Fred out online at tastylicksbbq.com. And by Stephen DeFranco Jewelers. Located in beautiful Willoughby, Ohio, Stephen DeFranco Jewelers is a family-owned and operated business looking to service the great folks of the barbecue and grilling world. Get free shipping and big discounts by mentioning my name and the term Barbecue Brother. Check out their inventory by visiting StephenDeFranco.com. And by Butcher Barbecue, with 30 years of experience in retail, wholesale, meat markets, food service, and customer service. Using that experience, everything they do and sell at Butcher's Barbecue comes from real-world knowledge. Check out their award-winning spices, sauces, marinades, and injections by visiting ButcherBBQ.com. Always trust your butcher. And by the Barbecue Institute. Take your barbecue to the next level with the Barbecue Institute class. Pitmaster Conrad Teddy Bear Haskins uses his years of catering and restaurant experience combined with food science and smoking secrets to help you understand how to improve your barbecue. Visit bbqinstitute.com and register for classes today. And by Green Mountain Grills. Discover something you'll really, really love. Grilling with pellets. Green Mountain pellet grills are the top of the line, best of the best, but not the highest in price. And be sure to check out all of their flavor rubs, sauces, and pellets for the Green Mountain Grill, all on their website. Visit greenmountaingrills.com to peruse the entire products portfolio. And by Barbecuer's Delight Wood Pellets. 2/3 oak, 1/3 flavor wood, giving you that perfect combination of BTU burn and sweet, succulent smoke you're looking to get all over your meat. A wide variety of flavors, so please go to the website to check it out and get yours today. Barbecuer's Delight, which is bbqrsdelight.com.
Hey, this is Helen Paradise from SoCal, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the light fluid on, strike the match, and oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show, ladies and gentlemen. The show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling, broadcasting live and direct from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city of Cleveland, Ohio, rapidly becoming known as the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday. If you would care to jump in on the show tonight, you especially, talking to you, you can do it one of two different ways. Toll free, 877-448-0433. You can also email the show, Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. And it's a big one tonight, I got to be honest. We have, well, technically speaking, 4 guests. We have one guest in the first hour, and then in the second hour, we'll get to that here in a second. Literally could blow the proverbial minds of many people listening out there today. If you don't get the newsletter, do yourself a favor. First and foremost, before we get into anything else tonight, head on over to the Barbecue Central Radio Network's homepage, thebbqcentralshow.com, and then sign up for the newsletter. We've got a couple hundred spots left, and basically what you get in its essence at this point is a heads up every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as to what is going to be going on in the show. Now, obviously, if you follow me on Facebook or you follow me on Twitter or any of the other social media style outlets, you might get brought up to speed a little bit. You know, some people aren't into that. Some people don't do Facebook. Some people don't do Twitter, social media. I maintain to this day that if I didn't have this show, I would not be on Facebook. I would not be on Twitter because, look, quite frankly, I do not lead that exciting of a life. I mean, as much as I would like to pretend otherwise, I don't. So I wouldn't want to share a bunch of other stuff with everybody else that doesn't care about me. But because we have the show, we want to make sure we're reaching the wide, vast audience of people that are interested in barbecue and grilling, and that's why I do it. So if you Facebook, go ahead. You can find me there. Barbecue Central Radio Show's got its own fan page. If you friend me personally, which is facebook.com/Greg.Rempe, I believe. If it's not just one word, I will accept your friendship. I don't disqualify anybody unless it's a straight-up, blatant porno. Won't accept you at that point. I will go look through and see who you are friends with, and if I'm friends with them, that's a little vetting I do. But really, I'm not that strict or stringent when it comes to friends on Facebook, so please feel free. Friend me up if you want to. Follow me on Twitter. That's even better. Don't even have to accept you there. You choose to follow me. You're opting in to listen to my drivel. And there you go. Here's what's happening on the show. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, and again, go ahead and sign up for it if you haven't, thebbqcentralshow.com. Coming up in about 11 minutes from now, a guy that I was finally able to meet in person when I attended the Sam's Club tour event, KCBS related. And that was probably going on a month ago. They were down in Canton, Ohio. KCBS was down in Canton, Ohio for the Sam's Club event down there at the Sam's Club on like Pershing Avenue or whatever the hell it's called. Right there in the main area, just north of town. And Michael McDearman runs the grilling tour portion of that. And if you're not familiar with how the Sam's Club thing works, so obviously you have the KCBS contest that we'll talk about here in a second, but you also have Troy Black doing the slow and low barbecue thing as a demonstration to the crowd that's there. And then you have Michael McDearman doing the hot and fast grilling aspect of it. So we got him at least for one segment, could stretch to two. If not, we'll fill in. And then second hour, we reprise the Barbecue Roundtable Brisket Edition, competition style. And the three top teams, as KCBS has it scored right now, will be in. Big T's Q Crew, Little Pigtown, QOW, all in. So, and that could be done via a Skype video as well. So lots of great things happening. And here we go. Let me quickly check in and see who's in the chat room. Whiskey Bent, who had another great show. Good job, chatters. Don G is in. Sylvie is in. Mojo Bricks. Nibble Me This, Gone Hog, and the usual suspects in the chat room. So if you want to go on to the OutdoorCookingChannel.com and jump in and partake in some of that conversation that typically has nothing to do with the show or is just making fun of me, feel free, jump in. So we have the Barbecue Roundtable Brisket Edition coming up in the second hour. There's your show, 877-448-0433. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Survey Tuesday, here we go. One of the first and only times we'll do Survey Tuesday tonight. Look, the Olympics started last Friday. Got to know, because in this house, mine, Olympics are big. We watch it all the time, 24/7, 365 days. Well, actually, 24/7, 16, because it's 16 days. Do you watch any of the Olympics? Did you watch the Olympics this weekend? There you go. Secondly, question number 2, what sport or event is your favorite if you're watching? What are you really waiting for? And question number 3, best meal you had this weekend? Nothing to do with it. Could be Olympics related, I guess. But what is the best meal that you had this weekend? All right. A big competition coming up this weekend in Rockford, Illinois. The Sam's Club Regional takes place. 10 teams will move on. The top 10 from this weekend taking place in Rockford will move on to the finals. Of course, there's 50 teams overall that'll take place in the finals. The first regional round took place on May 12th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the top 10 teams to move on from there were Who's Smoking Now, Grills Gone Wild, Iowa, the Smoking Hills, Route 66 Catering Crew, Sin City Smokers, R&R Barbecue, Trailhound Smokers Barbecue, Smokin' Triggers, Lil Max Barbecue, and Piggy D's. So those were the first 10 to move on, and that was a long time ago now. I mean, by the time they cooked that final, now they might cook times before that. However, from when they took place in May, I mean, it's going to be almost it's going to be almost 5 months, almost to the day, because I believe the finals is October 13th. That's right, in Bentonville, Arkansas. Let me quickly go over here. Let's see. Don, awesome. Glad to hear it. Greg, thanks, brother. Gone sweet. Where are we at here? Gymnastics. Chad with the men's gymnastics. Wait a second. I think my man Senor Chang has something to say about that, Chad.
Gay!
Just kidding. No offense. And I believe they choked it out. That sounded weird, too. That sounded...
Gay!
Made... Where is it? Where? Lobster roll in the Northeast. Oh, right. On the internet, no access to cable this week. Do you watch the Olympics? Oh, here's Mojo Bricks recapping for me. And coming to Rockford. See it. All right. So we'll go over those. So those were your top 10 first round. Second round regionals, again, take place this weekend, May 12th. So we'll see who gets, moves on this weekend, which would be August, 4th. This week. This one. Top 10 will move on from there. They will meet the existing top 10 that moved on from Albuquerque, and then there are 3 more regional events slated for the rest of September. September 15th in Chesapeake, Virginia. That's a Commonwealth. September 22nd, Hendersonville, Tennessee. And September 29th, St. Charles, Missouri. Now, the one coming up this weekend, I have a personal place in my heart for because that was one of the Canton locals that moved on to that regional. So we'll see how that goes. And then again, the finals take place October 13th in Bentonville, Arkansas. Man, I have less than a minute to get to the story. Maybe you didn't see it, but let me post it up here for you so you can see. Did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that the Weber kettle is born 1952? It's 60 years old. If you can believe it. This is the Weber Time Machine, a stroll down memory lane. And this was born from a buoy. Stevens was working at a Weber Brother Metalworks in Chicago, manufacturing marine buoys, when he came up with the idea for a grill. Basically, he cut it in half, added some air vents, and bam, you have your Weber kettle. And then it goes on. If you want that link, I'll go ahead and email it over to you so you can check it out yourself. But very interesting to see how it's changed over the last number of years. Into the 70s, 80s. See this gas grill right here? My dad and my twin brother had this gas grill as our first Weber Genesis. My brother still might have it floating around somewhere. So Performer was born in 1990. Remember the Performer, right? Those things go on sale at the end of the year. And then lots of great stuff. Lots of great trips down memory lane, all that great stuff. So happy birthday to the Weber kettle. Very happy for the Weber kettle. I hope I get to 60. Fingers crossed. Gang, let me tell you quickly about Tasty Licks Barbecue Supply. Look, we talk about it all the time. Unsavory businesses out there on the internet, they're looking to get your money. They're not looking to help you out in any form or fashion in regards to getting your product there. And to you on time. They might screw you out of your money. They might promise you a great price, but they really have no ability to get it and secure that inventory. So they take your money and they hold it while they hope they can find a better sale somewhere else and then fill your order at a later date. Let Fred Bernardo and the gang over at Tasty Licks Barbecue relieve you of all of these internet buying stresses. It's really not worth it. Tasty Licks has one of the most complete inventories of barbecue and grilling equipment anywhere on the face of the earth. And all of them are in stock right there at Shillington, Pennsylvania location, available to ship to you directly. Now, as we talked about, are there other places that you can find them cheaper? Are they going to get to you? I don't know. How long could it take to get to you? Who knows? You don't have to worry about that when you're dealing with Fred. They carry grill smokers, ceramic cookers, electric cookers, various charcoal types, wood chunks, chips, cookbooks, accessories. If they don't have it, you don't need it. And on top of all of that, Fred carries many of the other show sponsors in his store as well, so you're almost doing like this 2-for-1. Shopping at a sponsor, buying sponsors' products is the best of both worlds. And don't forget that Tasty Licks has their own brand of award-winning competition barbecue rubs and sauces as well, so check those out. There's also a brisket class coming up very shortly, so TastyLicksBBQ.com is the place you want to go to check that out. It might be no cost or just minimal cost, and Fred is winning on the competition circuit, so it might be worth a hop over. He's got a reserve grand underneath his belt. In any event, again, head on over to TastyLicksBBQ.com. Let the confidence exude from you as you make your online purchases, take the classes that he offers, eat the food. They cook all the time over there. They're egghead experts. They're experts. And then enjoy your items upon delivery. Don't forget that Fred and the gang are there to help you after the sale as well, which is very important. TastyLicksBBQ.com. Go now! Sign up for that brisket class, especially if you're in the Philly area. It's right there. I'll talk a little bit more about the Weber kettle, be a little more in depth in the third segment, depending on what Michael does here. But we'll grab Michael coming up out of the break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Radio Network studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, just shy of 14 past the hour. 877-448-0433. We're going to grab Michael McDearman here in a second. Don't forget, coming up in the second hour, and I've realized this is like all beef, all the time show. We have a grilling coming up here with Michael, and then in the 10 o'clock hour, it's the barbecue brisket roundtable competition style. The three top pitmasters when it comes to brisket will join me 10 o'clock. But first, my first guest tonight travels around this great country teaching people how to grill better. If you have a Sam's Club tour event near you, check it out. You can see him in action. Let's go ahead and race over to the hotline, grab the Grill Master for the American Grill Master Experience. Let's welcome Michael McDearman to the show. Michael, how are you, buddy? I'm doing absolutely fabulous, Michael, and I appreciate you joining me. Can you just say hi again real quick? I think I might have lost you somewhere. All right, hold on a second. There we go. I think I got you now. Audio technical difficulty on my end. It has nothing to do with you. All right, Michael, so again, I appreciate you taking time for the show. And before we get into this beef, before we get into grilling any of this high-temperature stuff, I follow you on the internet. I stalk you secretly. Well, now I guess the cat's out of the bag. You're a self-admitted big Tennessee Volunteers fan. You live in Cookeville. Now, look, we kind of tie in all of a sudden. The Browns are in the process of being sold to Jimmy Haslam. Should we as Browns fans be excited to have this guy own the Cleveland Browns and bring us to the potential promised land?
I tell you, he knows football. He's over at the practice field all the time at UT.
So as a potential owner of a NFL franchise, this is somebody that, I mean, obviously he's got ties well into UT. I mean, his dad follows all the way back there, was a player for UT. But he has a minority share in Pittsburgh right now, so he'll sell that. And obviously, so when they come here and finalize it, you would be enthralled if you were in my shoes to get an owner like this versus the one that we have right now, and Randy Lerner, who is, we've really never ever seen him ever before in his life during ownership here.
Well, I tell you, you have a hands-on, active family. Whatever they do, they definitely get involved and roll up their sleeves, whether it's the governorship of Tennessee or Pilot Oil or University of Tennessee.
All right. Well, I'm very anxious to see this whole thing go through so we can finally move ahead to the, or at least above the travesty that have been the Browns ever since they've returned in 1998. All right. So, Michael, for the people that don't know you, a little bit of background about yourself and how you got involved in this whole barbecue and grilling thing before we get into the grilling experience.
Well, a lot of my stories go back to when I was 7 years old, and I said, Mom, Dad, I want a motorcycle. They looked at me funny and said, all right, we'll call this bluff. If you want a motorcycle, go earn the money for it. So I became one of the youngest paper boys ever, and I'm slinging newspapers. And being a curious kid, I tug on pants legs and say, hey, what you doing? That was just my style, following my dad around. there was a neighbor actually outside cooking, and I found myself riding my bike past, slowing down, breathing a little deeper, and his cooking actually was preparation for a competition. So I had stopped off, and he gave me 15 minutes of his time. Wound up, it was Tony Stone, past president of the KCBS,
Yep.
and by the time I was 8 years old, I wound up finishing dinner before my parents got home. We'd do hamburger patties and veggies and that kind of thing. But my culinary skills, I've been cooking for 34 years now, and doing everything from designing smokers, Featherbrook smokers, to catering and everything in between. Well, it came along, the opportunity to get the best seat in the house for some of the top barbecue cooks in the country every week, and sit there and not shig them, but appreciate what they do. And I have been on the American Grill Master experience this is the second year now. Last year we did a good run, and this year we've got 9 straight months on the road.
Is it safe to say that Tony is the one that kind of got you into this barbecue and grilling stuff too, or did you do a lot of that just at home? I mean, Tennessee obviously considered to be a portion of the South. You got a lot of good barbecue meccas considered to be there, especially Memphis. So is that something you just kind of grew up around all your life?
Tony took the time, and he inspired me, and that was that aha moment that triggered it all. And as far as before he passed, he knew that, and I was happy he found that out. But as far as the cooking and tutelage and all that, all the stuff that I picked up has been through family, friends, and just like everybody else, observing and trying and failing a few times and figuring it out.
Michael McDearman joining me here on the show. If you want to find out a little bit more about him in relation to the Grill Master Tour, just go to the website grillmastertour.com. And, the Sam's Club Tour now on its second year as a whole, doing very well as far as popularity, and now giving us, this both sides of this experience. You got Troy Black with the low and slow stuff, and then you have the high heat grilling stuff with the Grill Master Tour experience. Bottom line, because I'm somebody that loves to revel in other people's success and excitement, how do you get this gig? Because it seems like it's got to be one of the best things ever.
There's probably only 6 people I know of traveling around the barbecue circuit, and 2 of the tours have 2 people on them. So there's only 3 or 4 tours that are like this. So it's not something you find in the classifieds.
So were you contacted by KCBS? Is this an MMA thing? How do you go about getting contacted, and was it just offered out to you specifically, or did you have to try out for it and do like auditions, not necessarily like TV audition stuff, but did they want you to kind of show your chops?
I've showed my chops for about 20 years. I've known Mike McLeod in MMA. The MMA offices are out of Cookeville, Tennessee, and they are the marketing firm of record, I think is the phrase,
yep,
for the KCBS, and the American Grill Master experience is put together by MMA Tribe, as well as they have a hand in the Sam's Club Tour and the Royal and some other events that you would definitely recognize.
So are they the only decision makers as far as this portion of the tour, or was there a collaborative, yes, let's go ahead and introduce the high heat and the low and slow at the same time to the American public?
I think that it's a perfect blend and opportunity to teach the public. And there are 2 aspects, and ask any competition cook, and we definitely think barbecue is something different. You go out to California and they think barbecue is grilling. And, it's just a difference in terminology and putting that word out there and teaching different techniques so folks can get actually fantastic restaurant quality food at home and start to understand and grow the sport and also take some pressure off of these cooks that are competing for the largest prize pool in the country of $500,000.
Michael McDearman joining me here on the show. Grillmastertour.com is the website if you want to kind of check it out there. Let me ask you this, since you kind of broached it, and I didn't even think about asking it, but since you kind of brought it up, I'd like to get a little bit more in-depth answer from you. And it basically comes to the definitions in your eyes, or what your stance on what is barbecue, what is grilling. Do you find barbecue as like an all-encompassing whole where other items fall underneath it, or do you think that these are just 2 completely discernible and different cooking methods, and one is this way and one is that way?
I think it's a situation where there's no magic number where you say, okay, at 300 degrees and below, it's going to be barbecue, and 301 and above, it's grilling. But I do think that the approach and technique of barbecue tends to be a slower process and a longer exposure to the heat and breaking down to those connective tissues and things. And the grill inside is going to be hotter and faster and not necessarily. I don't necessarily promote the 1600 degree steering and like that. I actually have a unique spin that I taught the two-time and reigning world champs, junior world champs, how to cook steak. So it's a little bit different approach there. So I'm sort of in the middle ground with my grilling temperatures as opposed to the high heat searing. But I definitely appreciate the barbecue being that low and, even cold smoke. You've got cold smoke even below barbecue. So.
All right, Mike, so you're on the road 9 months out of the year. Is it safe to say then that the Grill Master Tour is your quote-unquote full-time job, or are you holding something else down in conjunction while you're out on the road?
I've been called the busiest man in barbecue. I write for the Barbecue Times, the KCBS Bull Sheet, also grillingwithrich.com. I have my own company, Get Fired Up Foods. Feel free to check us out on Facebook if you like. And that has underneath it some great things that we've got coming up, and actually some game changers, I think was your phrase for it, when we met up in Canton.
Are we allowed to talk about that yet? When are we going to be able to talk about that thing? That thing's going to be awesome.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
When are we going to be able to talk about the game changer?
Actually, we'll be able to talk about the game changer this fall.
Oh, can't wait. You got to come on the show to talk about it when you're going to introduce it. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was very excited to hear about it when we were in Canton, and then you brought it up again. I got very excited again.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, too, and I know some teams out there are chomping at the bit to get into it as well. We've got, I produce an ugly drum smoker kit and some other things we're getting cranked up for. Let's say this, too, barbecue TV. I've got a 10-video cookbook coming out this fall. I've got a cookbook app coming out in the winter, a cookbook calendar as well for a fundraiser for an orphanage, as well as some pets, not-for-profits. And, anyway, bottom line is I keep my feet moving. No moss is growing under my feet. And then I do the load in and load out and manage the tour as well as perform on Saturdays.
There you go. Grillmastertour.com is the website. We're talking to Michael McDearman, who does the grilling portion of it for the Sam's Club Tour events. All right, so you're in front of the crowd on Saturdays and, getting to see you work with the public. Maybe you didn't realize how much I was kind of, hanging around the booth and seeing, it interests me to see somebody like yourself who, we kind of know each other through some internet talk and this and that, and we finally get to meet each other at Canton, but then to see you actually get into, Michael McDearman mode and Grill Master mode and talk to the public, and you got the microphone on and you're telling people what everything is going on. What are the biggest points that you are trying to hit on Saturdays when you're doing these demos for the public?
That you can get a $40 or $50 steak at home for $8 or $9, and you can get high quality food at home for a great healthy approach as well. The 29 lean cuts of beef getting across that. 3 are actually approved by the American Heart Association, and shocked a lot of people. They're giving it to marathon runners where they're trying to give them good energy protein to finish the race. And that is one of my sponsors, Beef It's What's for Dinner. Also McCormick, Heinz, and Bull Grills as well, Bull Outdoor Products. So when I'm trying to get things across, it's teaching technique. It's helping them understand that char and burning stuff is not necessarily how you grill, and showing them that the hot and fast approach actually, they miss out on 6 to 9% of the moisture in a steak if they sear it. Destroying that outer shell and that outer structure of the meat actually wicks away moisture. It does seal the juices in, but it doesn't leave the juices. When I show them hands-on, here you go, and taste it, and they get the full exposure of, say, a food TV, that they get to ask questions and get to actually get involved and understand the problems that they may face and things that they can overcome. Just going straight from the fridge to the grill instead of leaving your meat out to warm up reduces your flare-ups. So for the backyard griller, they're going to be fantastic just getting that, and their food's going to be improved just doing those. So there's a number of different ways and things that we go through and try and get 5 different recipes across to them.
So you said you would advise people to go from the refrigerator right to the grill.
I'll walk you through what I taught. I'll tell you a little story real
Please.
quick.
Yeah.
Woodbury, Minnesota. Last year I was on the tour and had these 2 young men walk up in Boy Scout uniforms. And my grandfather, he actually doled out benefits for the Veterans Administration in Nashville for a long time and taught me at an early age to respect the uniform and, not just the military, but the police, the fire. But when you see those Boy Scouts walking in their uniforms, you notice them. And they're walking up with a young lady who's mid-teens and very nicely dressed, all prim and proper the way they came up. And they humbly come up, soft-spoken, and they asked, would you mind sharing some steak secrets? I glanced at my watch, and it was a Friday afternoon on the Sam's tour, so I had a little time. I said, how much time you got? So for the next 4.5, 5 hours, we spent going over, and I walked them into the store and went over meat selection and walked them through the process. But essentially, I taught them these few things. Go straight from the fridge to the grill. It'll reduce your flare-ups because the soft white fat in the steak is actually going to render out. And if you warm it up, it'll render out faster and then create your flare-up issues. Then 4 steps to a perfect steak. And this is what I share with the public every weekend. And it's what they won the world championships with 2 years running. And I'm so proud of those kids. They're up to close to $50,000 in college scholarship money on.
Wow.
And they're just fantastic cooks. But the first step, preheat your grill to 325. Now, that medium heat on most gas grills and even on charcoal, no matter what your heat source is or how you prefer to cook it, it's still medium heat. When you do that, you're going to leave 6 to 9% more moisture in that meat. Second step, 5 to 7 minutes on a cleaned, oiled grill grate. You're going to leave it that first side in place, and the proteins are going to release those sugars and caramelize and get you great grill marks on a clean grill grate at 325 to 350. The third step, and I use my Thermopin, I flip it over and cook the second side till it's an internal temperature of 142 degrees. Now, the people are going to scratch and go, boy, he's getting all scientific. Well, I have to get to 145 to be medium rare. And cook-through temperature, it's like Grandma's cookies. They take them out the oven and put them up on top of the stove so they finish browning up on top of the stove away from the heat. You're going to do that with your meat, too. You're going to take it off the grill, and it's going to rise up 3 to 6 degrees cook-through temperature as you let it rest, which is the final step, letting it rest for 5 to 7 minutes. And that 5 to 7 minutes allows all those juices that have run to the middle of that steak, they've rushed in there. You want to let it rest, and that muscle will relax, and then those juices stay in the fibers instead of filling out on your plate and giving you pink potatoes, because I know we've all had those.
Now, when you are giving this prescription to cook, are you telling them this is for X cut of steak and it's this thick, or is that applicable to a skirt steak, to a regular T-bone and a rib steak or whatever?
I'm demoing everything from flank steak to ribeyes, New York strips, and different. I'm actually putting garlic on the outside, but we're roasting the garlic. If you burn garlic, it turns bitter. So basically, I'm laying the gauntlet down with my ingredients with sesame seed crust and garlic on the outside of a steak. And I'm saying, here's the technique. You can use it on anything from an inch-thick flank steak on up to a burger. It doesn't matter. The burgers, you want to get up, since it's ground meat and you didn't actually grind it yourself, you want to get it up to 100. That's just USDA guidelines. Sure. But anyway, as far as the steaks go, absolutely. I think it's a matter of having a little bit of understanding that 5 to 7 minutes is cooking the first side, and that's going to create your grill marks. Then you're going to flip it. And the secret really is going to internal temperature. And every competition cook out there knows we're getting in the ballpark of where we want to be with our piece of meat when we have a certain internal temperature. So when the home cook understands that, then their cooking's going to be more reliable. They're not going to be poking on their hand and guessing and questioning, is it really done? Well, my hand's a skinny hand, so it's not going to be as fat as some folks out there. I'm a skinny cook. So poking on my hand is not going to have the same feel as other people when they poke on that steak. So the best thing to do is to go to internal temperature. And when you're cooking that second side to an internal temperature, it takes all the guesswork out of it, and you don't have to worry necessarily about thick.
Well, I think a lot of people get hung up in the backyard because, A, they watch a lot of Food Network with a lot of people that think they know what they're talking about. But they've been also ingrained or brainwashed that you have to have proper crosshatch of grill marks on both sides of the steak. But you're basically saying do that grill mark thing on the first side, and then when you flip it over, because that's going to be the side you're going to present up, cook it to the internal temperature on the second time. And are you worried about that crosshatch on the underside, or you don't really care too much after that?
I don't go for an X. I go for one set of great grill marks. You eat with your eyes. And we've sort of been sold a bill of goods, like bottled water and going on dating with other bottled things. And you sit there with selling the sizzle on some of the food shows. They really are trying to get ratings, in my opinion. You go with an Alton Brown, more of a food science guy, and he actually teaches this same technique.
All right, Michael McDearman joining me here on the show. Michael, are you okay to stay for another segment?
Oh, absolutely. I'm here with you.
All right, so do me a favor, just kind of relax and hang back for a couple minutes. I'm going to do a quick read for the Barbecue Guru, and then we'll pick up the conversation with Michael McDearman, grillmastertour.com, if you want to check him out during the break. But first, let me talk to you about the longest-running sponsor of the show, the Barbecue Guru, located in Warminster, Pennsylvania. If you've been thinking about automatic pit temperature control devices for your cookers, stop here. This is the company that started it all. They are creators of this technology, so why would you buy from any other company? I have no idea. Now, if you're not familiar with how these beauties work, I'm not going to get into this huge minutia, but imagine this product that when you set a pit temperature, once it's set, it keeps running that pit at the temperature you set it at all the way through the cook. It's not too good to be true. It's real-life technology. You can take advantage of it today. Plus, you can take advantage of cutting-edge technology with this CyberQ Wi-Fi. So if you have access to Wi-Fi, I believe it also generates its own Wi-Fi signal. So if you have, and really, who doesn't these days? If you don't have a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet or a netbook or something, yeah, well, I guess you're SOL. But most people have those, especially people on the circuit or tech geeks at home. You have the ability to not have to roll out of bed in the middle of the night to check where your pit temperature is, to check where your internal temperature of your meats are. You don't have to do that anymore. All you have to do is fire up the phone, fire up your laptop in the bedroom or whatever the case may be, launch that web page associated with the CyberQ Wi-Fi, and now you have the ability to see where the temperature's at in the pit, where the temperatures are of the internal temperatures of the meat, and you can do up to 3 meats at the same time. So maybe you're cooking a little faster. You don't want to wake up at 8 a.m. in the morning or 9 a.m. in the morning to get all this stuff starting to rest in the cooler. You want to stretch it out a little bit. Dial that temperature back. You can sleep in a little longer. Barbecue Guru has now extended your sleep time, made you a much more bearable person to deal with in the morning. Now, on top of that, they also have one of the best cookers on the market called the Onyx Oven. It's an award-winning competition cooker that has proven itself on the competition circuit as well as in backyards all over the country. It's fully insulated, holds a ton of meat, accommodates half and full pans for food service, works seamlessly with the Barbecue Guru temperature control devices, obviously. So do yourself a favor. Head on over to thebbqguru.com. Check out their products. If you have any questions on what to order, you call them directly, 800-288-GURU. That's G-U-R-U. They will make sure you're outfitted with exactly what you need to get you up and running right out of the box. If you have technical support questions after the fact, again, call them, 800-288-GURU. Or you can visit them at thebbqguru.com. It's the Barbecue Guru, a breakthrough in barbecue technology. All right, we're going to come back with Michael McDearman talking more beef. It's beef night here on the show, believe it or not. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Get in the smoke. Call 877-448-0433 to get on the air. Now, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Big B, Moonshine Band.
All right, welcome back. 877-448-0433. Greg at the BBQCentralShow.com is the email address in case you want to get in touch with me. And we pick our conversation back up with Michael McDearman, GrillmasterTour.com. He's the guy doing the high heat stuff over in the Sam's Club tours. Michael, where are you going to be at this weekend?
Oh, I am in Rockford, Illinois.
All right.
I'm already drooling over these teams. If you take a list of those teams, it is just insane what's going to be going on in Rockford. You've got the Q-Owls coming in, the True Buds. You look at this team list, and it's just off the hook.
Yeah.
And, and I could go down the whole 30-team list, and you'd be sitting there going, oh, yeah. It's going to be a lucky time for those judges. They're going to be eating a lot of fantastic Q. Now, before we get in too far in this, I want to go back just a little bit on the cooking techniques.
Please.
Greg, with cooking, we're trying to also explain a little bit more about competition barbecue and share with them what's going on out there. And with my sponsor, Heinz, we're using the Heinz 57 sauce, but a lot of competition cooks, they're using their base sauces and making them their own with their apple juice and maybe a peach nectar or something they're adding to it or honey or who knows what. But trying to get the folks at home to understand what they're seeing on Barbecue Pitmasters and other shows and taking, say, a Heinz 57 and making it their own and adding things to it like garlic, cumin, and chili powder and making a good Southwest glaze with half and half butter just getting them to think outside the box and go, I really can do what I see on TV. And it's right there in front of me. It's not that hard, and it sure tastes good. So when we're trying to do that, and McCormick Grill Mates, I use that Montreal steak seasoning on my own competition brisket.
Oh.
I want to share folks and to hear what they do, too. And then they're willing to share their recipes. And it's just a good interactive thing about grilling. But anyway, as far as getting to this Rockford, Illinois thing, I want to talk about what I think is probably, and I've got a front row seat every weekend of this stuff.
Right.
I think this is probably the best comeback or recovery story ever. I really think it's that strong. Big T's Q, and you got him on later, don't you?
Yeah, we got the Big T's Q crew. We have Q-Wow, and we also have Little Pigtown in for the Brisket Roundtable second hour.
And Big T's over in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, you may have heard through the scuttlebutt that his meat got disqualified.
Yeah.
And at 9:30 in the morning, DQ meat has to start totally over. It comes in second in brisket. That's a strong cook to pull off a brisket in, 3.5, 4 hours? And that's definitely something. I'm glad you got him on. He
Giving
there.
whole new term to the phrase hot and fast, evidently.
It sure did. But you know what? When he went through it, you look at the whole Madison scorecard, chicken, 9th place, ribs, 6th, pork, 10th, brisket, 2nd, to last year's Sam's Club winner, Tippy Canoe, Joe Beelan.
Yep.
And overall to get a 4th and to make it on to the next round. It's definitely interesting when I'm sitting on this every weekend. And, you get to go to different places. Des Moines, I just left Des Moines last week and got to go to Smokey D's restaurant there. And, of course, Barbecue Pitmasters and Kingsford checked up on the wall. And,
oh, yeah.
And just came away with a grand championship this week in Mason City with only one call. Talk about consistent cooking to get that GC. And then out of that restaurant, they've actually got 3 teams with different head cooks making it to the regionals. Yeah. One's going to be in St. Charles. That's going to be Darren with Iowa Smokey D's. But then his other 2 teams are going to be in Rockford, as I understand it. Out of one restaurant, getting 3 cook teams to be able to move on like that. That's pretty impressive. And then Austin, Texas was probably one of my favorite stories with Franklin's Barbecue. Now, Aaron Franklin off of Barbecue Pitmasters, he was one of the judges with Myron and Puppy. And Aaron has been open about 2.5 years with this restaurant, and every day he's been open, he has sold out of his meat. He has not had one day with leftovers. It's a fantastic story, and he's in bricks and mortar down on 11th now in Austin. I went down there at 9:30 in the morning and just wanted to see what all the hustle and bustle was about. Got there at 9:30. I was already 25th in line.
Wow.
The place didn't open till 11. And salt and pepper on that brisket. Fantastic stuff. Now, out of that restaurant, too, his right-hand man moved on to the regionals. And he'll be up in St. Charles, Missouri at the regionals for the same. So every weekend I'm in a new place and look forward to trying new things. I mean, it's just finding different restaurants. Like in Madison, we went to the Tornado Club, an old political sort of feel to it right across from the Capitol building. And it's just a fantastic tour to get out there and meet people and eat all this good beef.
Michael McDearman joining me here on the show, grillmastertour.com. If you have a Sam's Club event that's coming around to you, make sure that you go check out the experience itself, but then hit up Michael, see what Troy does, because these are people kind of disseminating great information to the public to make the public a little bit more educated on how they can barbecue and grill better in their own backyards. All right, so if I'm giving you a $500 check and my G4 Lear to our Gulfstream to go fly out in Vegas this weekend, who do you want to bet on to take Grand Championship? It's my money, too. It's my money and my jet.
On that.
What do you think?
I've sat across from QL, and they've come strong. They're on a hot streak right now.
Oh, yeah.
And they just, in the national barbecue rankings, I know that they're putting some pressure on a couple teams to be right up there at the top performers, I tell you. But you look down through those 30 teams, it's anybody's ball game. It really is. It depends on Dave, the cook, and which judges, consistent judges you get put in front of.
Yeah, and the top 10 will move on to the final out there in Bentonville. So, Michael, I got a last couple minutes here with you. You're talking to people in the public when you're out there with the Sam's Club. Proper technique and, your particular recipe of making sure that they're cooking steaks properly and getting the best quality and taste out of them at home. What kind of essential tools do people need as well? Because, you can tell them to buy the meat, you can give them the recipe, but if they don't have the right tools, they're probably falling on their face a little bit.
A good set of tongs and a meat thermometer. And I go with the digital meat thermometer. But you're looking for a quicker read so you don't lose your heat off your grill. But a good quality grill, too. And this is where representing Bull Grills is easy because they've got consistent heat. Now, typically in the gas grills, you're going to have a front and a back cyclone is what I call it. So you got convection tornadoes going. And the hotter one's going to be in the back of the grill. And once they understand that they can cook to their temperature gauge on the front of their grill typically, then they'll be consistent and good. It's just a matter of having you a roast beef sandwich. Since it's beef night, having a roast beef sandwich in the fridge and getting out there and not be afraid to trying something new.
Now, I'm not necessarily familiar with Bull Grill. Do they, what sets them apart from, a Weber or, some of the other higher end type units?
Absolutely. It gets to be really easy on this side of things. With the gas grills, what you're looking at is consistent heat and the burner longevity as well. It's a 20-year-old American company out of California, but also has a manufacturing facility in Tennessee. Then they have cast stainless steel, cast iron burners. Things are going to go forever. You were actually talking about maintaining grill grates earlier, and they will go from generation to generation. Well, cast stainless steel burners, really? It's easy to get consistent heat radiating off of those. And then, they've got solid stainless steel grill grates. They've got dual-lined hoods with 304 stainless steel. They build it once well and design it once well so that they don't have to change their design 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And when you have a warranty issue, or if you ever come across that, then they are able to say, we do have the part, instead of we changed the design on you. It's a good company like that. They believe in old-fashioned values.
Are they somebody that's selling out of a dealer network like a specialty grill and barbecue store, or where would they be available for purchase?
Oh, sure. WillBBQ.com has a location, so you can find your local retailer. A lot of retailers such as Home Depot online. You've got Family Leisures, Watson's stores, a lot of specialty grill stores. Some landscape and construction folks do it as well. I mean, we've got quite a widespread coverage of the marketplace, and when you see them, you'll definitely recognize them.
All right, so in your estimation, because you're somebody that is kind of educating the public when it comes to the higher end or the higher heat cooking aspect when we're comparing it to barbecue, what are some of the common mistakes, the biggest mistakes that you see people make over and over again, or is there relaying a past cook to you going, I don't know where I went wrong, here's what I did? What are the common things that you see repeating themselves over and over again that we might be able to get out there so they can stay away from those in the future?
I think it's the fundamentals. I think it's very simply have clean grill grates, oil them, consistent heat source, and then it doesn't matter whether you're using a $14,000 Jambo or a $14 garbage can. If you've got the right type of approach with your cooking device, then you're going to be just fine. And I think, too, a lot of people shoot through their target windows. You know, if they're trying to sear, like, let's say at 1,000 degrees, they're trying to sear, they're going to shoot through that target window faster and just tone it down a little bit, bring it back to 25, 350, and create that consistent heat so that you're able to hit a larger target window and wind up with that tender, juicy, velvety beef that you're after. All
right, we are talking with Michael McDearman. You see him on the Grill Master Tour at the Sam's Club events that you see him traveling around at. We got a regional event in Rockford, Illinois that Michael will be at. So if you have the opportunity to stop out there, you're going to be in that area. Maybe if you're just passing through. I mean, they're at Sam's Clubs. It's not like you're going 50 miles out of your way. That was like the first thing that I thought of, Michael, when I was going down to the Canton thing was, man, damn, where's this thing going to be at? It could be in a cornfield. And I'm like, wait, this is a Sam's Club event. It's going to be right at a Sam's Club. So you hop right on. Directions are very easy to get to. They always have a lot of parking. You got a lot of blacktop, and they seem to be run very well. How do you and Troy get along? You pretty much glove in hand, and you work well off of each other. How do you find Troy to be?
Oh, good, healthy banter back and forth, and you know what? It's always good among barbecue people are good people. I've not found folks to it's just a good cross section of Americana, really. And I sit there and tell people, we need to have baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet, but we need to add a fourth. We need to add barbecue in there. It's just good old American folks. So as far as getting along, it's fantastic. We play well off of each other, being hot and fast and low and slow. But I'm going to be sampling out. Actually, this weekend, 10:30, we're going to start our sampling to the public. I'll be giving away 1,200 Cokes and all kinds of stuff. So come on down and get you a Coke and have a smile, and then also, too, get you fed, because we're going to have quite a few folks at the regional, not just myself serving that great beef, but you also have Tyson wings, some pulled pork, some Casey Masterpiece will be there doing some pulled pork sliders, all kinds of food to come and sample.
Oh, absolutely fabulous. So, yeah, like Michael's saying, if you have the opportunity to get down there, if you haven't been to a Sam's Club event yet, definitely something you want to get down to, because you can eat like a champion down there, and you get the free Coke and all that other stuff, too. Michael, really appreciate you coming on, making time for the show tonight, and good luck this coming weekend in Rockford. Hope everything turns out well for you.
Thank you very much, and tell those beef cooks I said hi.
You got it. There he is, Michael McDearman, grillmastertour.com, if you need it. I had a blast down there. I got to be honest. Why would I not say I got to be honest? So Michael is actually going against what a lot of people tell you to do, a lot of these talking heads, when it comes to the steak. So if you, the cook, or the process of cooking. So if you didn't get it, step one, preheat the grill to 325, 350, which is typically at least 100 degrees less than what I typically do. 5 to 7 minutes the first side to get those grill marks in. Then you flip it, and then you're going for internal temperature only. And he goes to 142. If you're a pulse eater, you want to drop it down 5-10 degrees. If you like it a little bit more well done on the inside, you want to bump it up 5, 7, 8, 10 degrees. But let it rest 5 to 7 minutes. Those 4 steps: preheat 325 to 350, 5 to 7 minutes on the first side, flip it, and then cook the 142 just as like a target. And again, if you like it done a little more, a little less, make your timing adjustments as necessary on that second side. Get a good thermometer. Biggest problem, people are cheap and they have bad thermometers. Bone out. Buy the best and only cry once. All right, gang, let me tell you about it, because I've told you about it the last 3 weeks. This Butcher Barbecue. Thinking of ways for you to trust him even more than you already do, and you're like, right, I couldn't possibly trust Dave and the people over at Butcher's Barbecue more than I already do. Poppycock. Here's a way you can trust them even more. How about this? For the first time ever in the history of the world, no other company, aside from Butcher's, trying to not only make their own customers happy, but their competitors' customers happy as well. What do I mean by that? Maybe you bought another injection that hasn't worked out for your scores have tanked. Now it's just sitting around collecting dust, probably never to be used again. What to do? Well, before you just cry. Now, no more crying. You trade it in, pound for pound. All you have to do, you go to butcherbarbecue.com, and you click the trade-in link once you're there. Fill out the form, print it off, seal up your trade, mail it to Dave. He'll send you back Butcher Barbecue beef, pork, or prime injection. Wow. Look, we've all done it. You spend some money, only to find out the product is bad. Now the wife is pissed at you because you could have taken her out on the town instead of wasting it on this injection. How many times have you been in that situation? You're spending the money on a product, and when you realize that it sucks, you're in a vacillating situation. That means you're stuck between A and B. What are you going to do? Probably won't use it again because it's, too expensive to throw out. And in the past, you were stuck, but now you trade it in pound for pound for Butcher's Barbecue. Look, they'll match it pound for pound. You have nothing to lose, only great products to gain that have been time-tested by award-winning cooks across various sanctioning bodies. They'll honor commercially made products along with the partial or complete label. It's a limit of 5 per item per household. And all products will be weighed at the time of arrival, and that amount is final. If you have any questions, contact Dave directly, the butcherbarbecue.com website. It's a trade-in program happening right now at butcherbbq.com. Just one more way for you to trust your butcher. Again, butcherbbq.com for the trade-in program. You get jammed up, you get sucky injections. Send them to Dave. He'll take care of you. He's taking care of me, he's taking care of you. Bada bing. All right, we'll wrap the first hour up here, and then we'll head on over to the round table. Brisket style. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Big name interviews, advice on cooking brisket and ribs. And the only host willing to share his honest opinion on all things important in the world of barbecue. It's the Barbecue Central Show.
Who would have thought this music thing was going to go this far? I never asked for this. I never asked for this fast living. The women, the whiskey, craziness. There's whiskey in my soul.
All right.
Hey, Bert, let's go.
Just shy of 5 till. Thanks again to Mike McDearman joining me for the last 2 segments, talking about the high-end heat portion of beef steak. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Do I want to jump early so I can set all this stuff up properly or what? No, I do. Once again, in case you didn't get it, for the cooking the beef properly, Michael McDearman's recipe, preheat the grill 325 to 350 degrees first. Go right from the fridge to the grill with the meat. Don't let it come up to temperature. 5 to 7 minutes on the first side. Then flip it. Cook it to an internal temperature of 142 degrees. More if you like it a little bit more done, less if you like it a little bit more of a pulse. And then you let it rest for 5 to 7 minutes coming off the grill. Yeah. Man, these cups are like the best thing ever. You see this cup? Okay, one second. It's like a double-walled. I know it's a little femmy. But, whatever. Really good for the drinks when I make cocktails. All right, let me get out of here. Don't forget brisket roundtable coming up. Let me see. How do I get these people? I got Mike Wozniak, Music Man Ryan. That's got to be Ryan Newstrom. And Scott Key. Why not? It's got to work. It's just technology, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! GrillMasterTour.com, Michael McDearman's site. Plus, it links to all the other things, like it's literally, he's got 50 billion irons in the fire. 50 billion logs in the cooker, if you will. All right, I'm going to jump early and make sure we have enough time to do the brisket roundtable. Maybe your calls at the end of the second hour if we need to fill a little bit, but better to have time at the end instead of racing through, because we do have breaks as well. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show right here on the Barbecue Central Radio Network.
From my heart and from my hand, why don't people understand my intention?
Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan. So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the Charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 54 wieners.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
You could use it to fight off creeping marauders looking to take your steaks off your grills.
I just like being anywhere with Junior, Senior, and Diva.
Sounds like a whole other type of movie.
Wow. Yeah, really. Keep it hot, keep it clean, keep it lubricated.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour, ladies and gentlemen. Well, a little early, but that's all right. Want to make sure we have enough time, because this is a very special show. Got to print off my questions. Love it when I'm always ready for the big shows. Here we go. Okay, let's see here. Beginning right off the top, we move to a fan favorite style show called the Barbecue Roundtable. It's a competition. This is competition format, not backyard format like we have sometimes. And helping me break down the brisket category tonight are the three top brisket cooks in the KCBS right now. Ryan Newstrom of Big T's Q Crew, Scott Key of Little Pigtown. He took a reserve in Lola, Kansas this past weekend. Mike Wozniak of QOW, who took a grand champion this past weekend in Morton, Illinois. Guys, appreciate you joining me tonight to do a little brisket talk here. Before we get into the prep and the cooking and all that crap, why don't we go around the table here real quick and see what everybody's cooking on, and we'll go ahead and start with Scott.
I'm cooking on a Jambo Pit.
Jambo Pit. Custom made, of course, right?
Correct.
Ryan?
Up until this season, I hadn't turned a brisket in from anything else other than trusty Weber Smoky Mountain Bullet, but we got a Jambo this season, so that's what we're cooking on.
Have you, Mike, what are you cooking
on? Peoria Custom Cooker.
All right, Peoria. So all wood burners, and, you know, with the, I don't know if it has been recent popularity of pellet cookers, but it seems, while they're still out there, that this return to offset cooking has kind of made maybe a little bit more of a resurgence, or at least I'm seeing more stick burner style, whether it be the Jambo. Mike, I don't know how many Peoria custom cookers you see out there on the circuit as well, but I know you've used them for quite a while. Mike, do you like the flavor that the offsets are putting on? Have you tinkered around with other styles of cookers and just not found them to be as good as the offset or the Peoria in your case?
All I ever use is an offset. I started out with like the Horizon or Oklahoma Joe style, and then started cooking on the Peoria cookers. I don't use wood anymore. I just use charcoal. I don't even add wood chips or anything like that. I get enough flavor from the charcoal.
All right. What about you, Ryan? You had been using Weber Smoky Mountains all the way up until this year. Do you find a distinct flavor profile difference that you're getting with the Jambo?
Not really. I mean, we had such success with the Bullet, with the briskets in years past. That was the thing that I was most reluctant to switching over to the Jambo, but I kind of jumped in head first with it this season, and we really haven't looked back. You know, the all wood kind of, it definitely gives a different flavor, and the smoke is somewhat more apparent, I'd say. But not a complete overhaul of what we were doing before.
Scott, have you been a Jambo cooker straight along, or have you moved over from time to time?
No, the first year I cooked competitions, I used a Stumps cooker, which is a cabinet style. It's not gravity fed, or it's not pellet cooker, but it's gravity fed charcoal bin.
Yep.
And after a year of that, I switched over to my Jambo.
Anything particular?
There's just a combination of the smoke and the rubs and the pit and everything in one. It just make a great bark, and it just seems to work well for me. So.
All right, so there's always been, not always, but there's been a lot of talk, over the last maybe 3-4 years, especially when that first season of Barbecue Pitmasters showed up on television about Wagyu beef. People started trending over to that, or at least you heard a lot of talk, especially in the internet boards, about people wanting to get into the Snake River Farms or the Strew Branch or whatever the case may be. Scott, are you a believer and a user of Wagyu beef?
No, I've used them both. I mean, I've used Wagyu, I've used Prime, I've used choice cuts from Sam's. If you play with Wagyu, it's really difficult to, you're not going to be able to inject it. It seems like there's such flavor there that you don't need to put a whole lot of injection into it. But any other kind of meat, it doesn't hurt to inject it.
What about you, Ryan? You use Wagyu beef?
Yeah, we've used Wagyu since before it was sexy, when Barbecue Pitmasters came on the scene. And when we first got started in 2009, I was kind of, as a green cook, if you will, I was kind of looking for something to help me out a little bit, and I found a guy in western Iowa that was producing Wagyu briskets, and I kind of started out saying to myself that we'd see how it goes. If it didn't pay off well, that we'd go back to cab or whatever. And right off the bat, we got second in brisket out of 70 teams in our second contest ever. And pretty much since then, I haven't looked back. And that's all we've ever turned in.
Like, I believe I probably asked you this question before in other conversations, and that you don't. But do you use Wagyu, or have you something you have tried before?
We finally switched over last September.
Okay.
I had used Walmart and Sam's briskets for years with a great deal of success. We started out in 2011 with a lot of success, and then halfway through the year, nothing. So in September, I got a hold of some Wagyus, and I got some good ones, and I got some bad ones, and we've never looked back. And what I look for, I went to big ones. We've had success with Snake River. I had some that I got from Australia. They had a red stripe on them, and they're a little bit cheaper, but I wouldn't recommend them. We didn't have much luck with them.
Ryan, who are you? Do you have a preferred purveyor of Wagyu?
Yeah, I do actually. Like I mentioned, there's a guy out in western Iowa. By the producer is called Majinola Meats, and you can look at their website, majinolameats.com, MAJINOLA.com. I'm reluctant to say that only because I was talking to him yesterday, and he says he's getting calls all the time from competition cooks wanting to use his stuff, and he's a small family farm. He's only going through 10 head or so a month, and until he figures out a way to produce a cow that produces 8 different briskets, he's in short supply. And so we kind of are one of 2 or 3 teams that kind of have exclusive access to his briskets.
All right, so you guys are top 3 right now in regards to brisket for KCBS. We're right at the end of July, literally the last day of July. Scott, when you're at competitions and people have seen your success, do you have other teams actually coming up and asking you, what are you doing? What is your process? Who are you buying from in order to not shig off you, but I guess potentially clone what you're doing?
Well, we're sort of guarded about what we say. We don't give up too much, but when we buy Wagyu, we buy it from Snake River Farms. I'll tell everybody anytime we inject, we always use Cosmo's Reserve blend.
Whoa! Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got that whole pre-cook thing that we're going to talk about, all that crap. But I mean, just like in general, do you find that contestants are coming up to you and asking you a lot of stuff, or maybe even trying to do some trickery on you?
Nah, not too much. Most of those guys know. We all know each other, and I don't get a whole lot of that.
Ryan,
you'll catch a local guy that'll come up sometimes, a new team, and will ask for some advice, and I'll help them out a little bit, but you can't drop too many nuggets for new guys.
Ryan, do you get a lot of foot traffic around the Big T's Q Crew site asking you what's this, what's that? Yeah,
we'll get people on occasion that tend to ask a few more questions than most people, but I'll I'll never lie to anybody. I'll tell them what we do. I won't give them all the details necessarily, but I like to help. I like to help people out and try to get them on the right track.
And then, of course, Mike, let me ask you, and I mean, you've won Team of the Year. You've been doing this for a long time now. You have a lot of success with the years past. Do you find that you get a lot of foot traffic when you're in town and people want to see what's up with the Q-Out camp and what you guys are doing in the process?
I think what you're asking, if people want to shig, the answer is yes. We had a new trailer built over in Iowa, in Humboldt, Iowa, by Jensen, and it's pretty shig-proof. The cooker's kind of enclosed, the trailer's kind of enclosed, and so nobody can really see what's going on. I do share information with a couple teams, that I've known for years, and one of them is Parrot Head Smokers out of South Dakota, and that's kind of backfired. I mean, I helped him a little bit, and now he's really been kicking my ass when we go up against him in brisket.
Yeah, he's also been having a pretty good year. Had another decent finish this past weekend. All right, here, guys. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn you down here real quick, and then I'm going to go ahead and get in a quick read for the show sponsors and pay some bills here. And we'll come back. We'll talk about the prep. So get ready for the prep, guys. Pull out your notes and whatnot. And I will talk quickly to the crowd about the Barbecue Institute. And you want to take that barbecue to the next level with a Barbecue Institute class. You know him, it's a Teddy Bear Conrad Haskins, and uses his years of catering and restaurant experience combined with food science and smoking secrets to help you understand how to improve your barbecue. Backyard barbecuers and those folks who want to open a business drive and fly in from all over the world for the Institute's small, friendly, informative classes. Upcoming Barbecue 101 classes include Riverhead, New York, Dallas, and Houston, Texas. And then they're going to have a commercial barbecue class for those wanting to open their own businesses, and that's going to be at the Gator Pit Factory in Houston, Texas, using their approved commercial kitchen. Now, following a sold-out second annual barbecue at the McKinley Springs Winery, plans are already in the mix for 2013. The Barbecue Institute is planning on adding a 2-day Dutch oven class and a 1-day butchering class on each side of that weekend. Now, you can learn the differences between all of these cooking fuels, the charcoal, the gas, the sticks, the wood pellets. They can all produce amazing results, yet all require a different route to get there. Learn the practical secrets and the food science on the methods to get the best results from each heat source. Now, we're not teaching classes on the weekends. Conrad is conducting private classes and corporate events from coast to coast during the week. He also founded OPBBQ.com in 2004. It still feeds troops that are wounded in war. Make your next offsite party really memorable. Have a Barbecue Institute offsite party. Show your employees you care with the very best barbecue that money can buy. They're going to be talking about it for years to come. They're also going to be stealing all of the leftovers, so make sure that you lock it up. Not only are your employees essential to your operation, they're thieves when it comes to barbecue. Look for details on all the Barbecue Institute classes. You visit their website, bbqinstitute.com. Again, that's bbqinstitute.com, or you can check out their Facebook page for the latest news and pictures. BarbecueInstitute.com. And again, for the price, really one of the top values out there, especially if you're not looking specifically for a competition-style cooking class. All right, we're going to come back in just a few seconds with the prep of brisket. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show right here on the Barbecue Central Radio Network.
Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Radio Network studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. Just past 10 minutes after 10 o'clock on your Tuesday, 877-448-0433. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. All right, let's go ahead and get into the preparatory events for brisket cook. We'll start with Scott Key here. Now, gentlemen, just one quick mention again. Best to just kind of answer the question at hand. Easy to kind of fold into some of the other processes that are just kind of like hand in glove. But if you just kind of answer the question at hand, and then we'll kind of move on. Scott, we'll start with you. Might seem like a strange question, but of course I've always found out through the history of the show now 5-6 years. It's the question that I don't ask until years later that I found out somebody else had a different answer for. So is it whole packers or is it flats for Little Pigtown?
It's flats for me.
Okay, see, I'm glad I asked that.
Packers, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Good God, I didn't say flats. Packers, Hellfire.
All right.
You can't even get a flat in Snake River, can you?
I would not know because I do not use Wagyu. I only use whatever the crap at the BJ store is. That's right. Ryan, whole Packers or flats?
Whole Packers. Yep.
And Mike, whole Packers or flats?
Packers.
Mike, let me ask you, have you ever used just flats at some point, or has it always been whole Packers right along?
I would only use the flat in emergency. I like to turn burn ends in, and of course, you don't get burn ends when you cook a flat. You have to have a packer to get burn ends.
What about you, Ryan? Had you ever used flats at some point? I mean, you were working with the Weber Smoky Mountain, so I mean, there is a limited space there.
No, Mike mentioned in an emergency you would use a flat, and that was the only instance of which I've ever actually even home use cooked a flat by itself, and that was a couple weeks ago back in Madison when I found myself in a position having to start cooking at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I grabbed the first flat I could, sprinting into Sam's Club and back to my cook site, and threw it in the hot spot of the cooker, and that was the first time we haven't turned in burn ends.
Well, regardless, that 3-hour brisket seemed to turn out pretty well for you in that competition.
I have no idea how. I couldn't tell you.
Is it part cook, part cooker? That's what I've heard, rumor-wise.
Well, it's a damn good cooker, no doubt. I opened her up and got her as hot as I could get her, and it cooked nice and even for me through that entire incredible procedure that we had.
Scott,
no doubt.
Scott, you ever used flats in the past, or has it always been whole Packers for you as well?
No, I've never used them in competition.
All right, we'll move on to the next question, and we'll start with Mike. Are you using a specific, specific purveyors for brisket? So we'll go ahead and run down the line there real quick one more time so everybody. There's a lot of people jumping in here on the chat room that didn't hear it before, but the brand of a brisket that you like best, we'll start with Mike.
Yeah, Snake River. If you can get the big ones, I like about 20 pounds up.
Wow.
And like, again, I mentioned we did get some early on that were from Australia, and they didn't turn out. They were Wagyu, but they didn't turn out as well. They didn't have the texture or the flavor. But Snake River is fairly constant in their quality. But again, I like the big ones, 20 pounds and up. You get bigger slices from your flat.
Scott, you're a Snake River Farms 2 guy, right?
Yep.
Are you
necessarily get the big ones like him?
I was going to say, what kind of ability do you have when you're placing an order with Snake River Farms to say, I want a 20-pound or I want a 13 or 14-pound or somewhere in between?
Well, they offer you, there's several different options on there, but I think there's like 11 to 13 or 14-pound range, and then there's like a 14 to 17-pound range and a 17 to 20-pound range, which are those big mammoth ones that King Wazzy's talking about over there. I get the middle ones. I don't get the great big ones.
All right, and Ryan, what was the name of the purveyor that you're using too? That is
Maginola Meats. They're out of Western Iowa.
Western Iowa.
Mark and Jill Smits. They're great people.
All right,
and we've also every once in a while cook a prime as backup, and we use Creekstone primes for that.
All right, Ryan, let me stay with you on this one. How many briskets are you cooking at an event? Is it 1? Is it 8? Where are you at?
Dose 2.
2.
Always cook 2. I don't have enough guts to just cook 1.
Was there a point when you actually cooked more than that, or never more than 2?
No, never more than 2. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they both turn out pretty darn similar. But every once in a while, we need to go to a second one. So that's all we need.
Scott, how many briskets you throwing in the cooker for a comp?
I just cook 1.
And you're good with that?
Yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of years, and it seems to work out okay. No, it ain't that. That's just I'm dumb enough to do it.
Is it an instance, or maybe you haven't necessarily thought about it like this, but because you are doing one, since you don't have the luxury of a backup, that you really have to stay focused on that one, and otherwise you're pretty much screwed, right?
Yeah, you do pay a lot of attention if it's just one brisket to play. And you get used to things on your cooker. You know, you put one brisket in one spot, and if I were to add 2, then I'd have to shift something. And as silly as that sounds, that really affects the whole cooking process when you start moving stuff around on your pit. So it's just been what I've always done, and I kind of stick to it.
Mike, how many briskets you throwing on the cooker there for an event?
This year I've just been cooking one. We were fortunate at the beginning of the year. We shared a pallet of briskets with some other teams from Kansas City, and we're talking about 2,000 pounds of brisket that costs about $11,000. And I got a flash freezer, and so I got these all put away, and I've been cooking just one of the big ones at a time. Now I'm going to get down to where there's some smaller ones, and I'll have to cook two at a time. But as long as I can cook just one big one, I'm sure that they'll turn out. A few times I got fooled, but most of the time they turn out. It's easier to babysit one, sort of like what Scott said. It's just easier. I cook 4 butts though, but one brisket. When you're paying $100 for a brisket, one's enough.
Absolutely. Scott Key, Ryan Newstrom, Mike Wozniak joining me here on the show. Little Pigtown, Big T's Q Crew, and Q Out, top 3 brisket cooks in KCBS right now when we're talking about the competition brisket here tonight. I mean, since you're already ordering from a lot of these specialty purveyors, this might have to lend you to harken back to the old days when you were maybe going through the big box stores. But for the people that are watching here tonight, when you were doing that, what are you looking for in a brisket? What makes you choose one over the other, especially back in those days when you were looking at a choice cut or maybe a cab? And we'll start with Scott.
Oh, the flat. I always grab the flat and see how thin it is on that thin side. And then I like to grab it. You kind of like it to be flimsy as well. You kind of grab it from the point end, shake it, and see how flimsy that brisket is. And then if you can get a combination of a good thick flat, and a good flimsy, I like to call flimsy, kind of a floppity brisket, and that's what I'd go with.
What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Thicker the flat, the better. I think sometimes you can get too thick, but I like it at least an inch and a half, and then a decent sized point. Sometimes they cut off too much of the point, and you don't have enough burn ends to pull from. And then I like to flimsy. I definitely do the flat test with the brisket, and I like to get my hands in there and feel the meat. And it's a big interactive process with me. And then I also look at marbling. I know some guys don't really look at that, but to me, it's just another indicator that I like to see there.
What about you, Mike?
Well, when I was cooking non-Wagyus, I looked for 12 to 14 pounders that had thick flats, and I didn't trim them very much. But now that I've switched to Wagyu, I found that I got to trim more of the fat off. That's why I like to start with like a 20-pounder. There's an awful lot of fat you can trim off, sometimes 3 or 4 pounds. And again, I look for the flat. They're shaped a little bit different too. Usually the flat is wider, and you got more of a skinny part that you can trim off. And we trim off typically 1/2 to 3/4 of a pound, and we take it home and grind it into hamburger.
All right, so Mike, you kind of led me nicely into the second question, which was the trimming process. So it sounds like you're doing quite a bit of trimming with your Wagyu briskets. Are you cooking them as a whole? Do you at all, or have you ever separated point and flat prior to going onto the cooker?
No, I always cook it whole. I don't do my separation until it comes into the trailer.
Ryan, as far as trimming process for you, what do you got? And then do you cook? You cook it whole all the way through, or do you ever separate point and flat?
I don't fully separate. I cut into that the kernel of fat to expose some of the point around it, so that I can get some burn ends. But I don't separate them until I'm ready to start cutting them up.
And Scott, what kind of a trimming process are you going through with your briskets?
I don't separate them either. Not at the contest.
Are you trimming a lot of fat off, or do you pretty much let it ride as it's coming out of the cryovac?
Yeah, I cut it open. I actually trim my meat a lot of times on Wednesday nights. So I trim the sides down to about the size I want them. I'll cut some of the fat off, the skin off the top, if that little membrane shit over the top or whatever that stuff is. Kind of get some of that off there and get it shaped similar to what I'm looking for, and then I vacuum seal it up and take it with me.
Now, you kind of mentioned how you're trimming them up, Wednesday before a comp. when you have it in front of you, are you visually looking at it and going, I would like to take X amount off of this side and that side in order to make sure that I could get a slice that's going to be nicely fitting for the box? Are you thinking that far ahead already as far as turn-ins are concerned, Scott?
Yeah, for sure. I look at it and kind of measure it up with my knife, kind of what I think the box size is going to be, and I always use the same knife. So I kind of know what that width is I'm looking for and kind of picture where I'm going to take my slices from and trim it sort of to fit. I mean, it's not exact every time, but I get it within that range that I think I'm going to use at the contest when I slice it.
Mike, when you're trimming up, are you also trimming in proportion to a box turn-in for a slice?
If we can. There's been times when we've had a gash or something like that, or a big fat streak down center, and then it makes your slices narrower. But it's like last week up in Morton, we had a gash, but luckily I was past that where I got my slices from. But I always try to picture where the slices are going to come from. I'm trying to look for something in the center. That's usually where the most tender slices come from. And that's what we want, slices that are full width of the box, and then we put the burn ends either in the front or the back. But those big, wide slices, tall slices, look really good in a box, and I think it impresses the judges a lot more than a skinny, narrow slice.
What about you, Ryan? Are you looking to kind of trim up that brisket prior to going on the cooker to fit that box for slices?
I'll try to square it up a little bit. I haven't successfully pre-trimmed a brisket to fit in the box the way I want it, so I always have to cut it down once it's cooked anyway. So I don't worry about it too much.
All right, Mike, we'll start with you on this question, and of course, this is going to be a very popular question for me to ask. I'm assuming, but I'll ask anyway, are you injecting your brisket? If you're injecting it, are you using a specific brand, like a pre-made that's already out there, or is it something that you're concocting on your own?
We've always used our own injection. I mean, since like 2005. I've tried some of the commercial stuff. I haven't tried any lately, but at the time they had phosphates in them. I'm sure they still do. And I did not like the texture after the meat was cooked. I thought it gave it a bad feel, kind of a slimy feel to it, especially when it was in my mouth. We just use basically kind of a beefy broth with beef base, which you can find refrigerated at some grocery stores. It's like a beef paste, real thick,
yep.
And we inject that.
All right, Scott, we'll go over to you. Are you injecting brisket, and is something that, if you are, is it something that you're making yourself, or are you using what's available on the market right now?
No, I use Cosmo's brisket injection, his reserve blend.
Now he's got the reserve blend. He also has the regular Cosmos Q. Have you tried both?
I have. It just for the rubs and everything I use on mine, I actually like his new reserve blend better. It seems to just cook up and give it a little better flavor for me.
I want to back up here for a second, Mike, and ask you this because I forgot to. Was there a point when you didn't ever inject brisket?
Yeah. We at the Royal last year. When we were prepping for the Open, my wife goes, "Did you inject the ones for the Invitational?" And I said, "Yes." And she pulled out the injection, and there was none missing. And those briskets turned out pretty dry. I guess it's my technique that we cook really hot and fast. I think I have to have injection in there because the next day we got, I think, 8th in brisket in the Open, out of 475 teams. But in the Invitational, our briskets both, I did cook 2 because that's a special contest, and they were just dry. And that's the only thing difference was that they weren't injected.
Scott, have you always injected, or was there a point when you were not doing that?
I didn't inject for the longest time, and then I started messing around with it. And I got it worked out to where I like it. So probably in the last year and a half, I've started injecting more and more.
All right, Ryan, are you injecting? Is it something that you've always done? And if you are you using somebody's stuff that's already out there in the market, or are you making your own?
Yes. I inject, and I like both Cosmos and Butch's product. And we've, I think our very first contest, we didn't inject. We still got a call with brisket, but I always just thought that injecting it with one of those products would help me to a different level. So,
All right, let me stay with you on this one, Ryan. And this might seem stupid, but again, I've asked this question before in different roundtables, and somebody always surprised me with an answer. Do you ever set your brisket out in order to achieve, like, it to kind of come up to a room temperature, so to speak? Or is it always right out of the chest after you've injected it and then right onto the cooker?
Yeah, I try to keep it as cold as possible. My brisket, my pork butts I'll set out a little bit ahead of time. But my briskets, I keep them, I take them straight out of the cooler and I inject them and put them back into the cooler. And then they come straight out of the cooler to go on the cooker.
Scott, same style of process for you, or will you go ahead and leave it out for a little bit before it hits the cooker?
I'll inject it and rub it and let it set out for an hour and a half probably-ish. And then I'll put it in the fridge, and then I'll come straight out of the fridge onto the cooker.
Mike, what about you?
Well, first thing we do when we get to a contest Friday morning is inject the brisket. We wrap it up and put it back in the fridge, and then about 11:30 Friday night we take it out and let it sit out till 3:30 in the morning. So yeah, we do bring it up to room temperature and cook it quick.
Are you finding that to help in the cook? Or what's the benefit of you to do that versus taking it right out of the cooler and then throwing it onto the cooker? Is it because you're cooking hot and fast, you need it to be a little bit more warm and ready to go to help you get through that quick cook?
Well, I'm cooking at like 325 degrees. I don't want to burn the outside up without getting, with the inside being raw. It's a lot like cooking a steak. When you're searing it, you want to let the heat come through it. And if you got that inside at like 32 or 34 degrees, it's going to take a hell of a long time for the heat to come through there. So that's just the way we've always done it. I'm not as bad as like Myron Mixon, who will leave the stuff out, from late on Friday evening, even when it's 90 degrees out. But we're pretty consistent about that, and I know we get a good product, so I'm not going to change.
All right, so you're injecting it Friday when you get there. How far in advance are you rubbing the brisket?
I don't rub it till I put it on.
All right, so that's not very long. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I'll inject it and rub it on Friday, early evening.
And Scott, how far in advance are you applying your rub?
I'm in the same boat with Ryan. I normally in the fall I don't get to these till super late, so I'm not even injecting or rubbing until 8 or 9 o'clock at some of them. But here in the summer when the girls are out of school, I can get it before 4 o'clock. Sometimes, but 8 or 9 in the fall for sure.
Are you using somebody's commercially made rub, or are you Little Pig Town making their own stuff?
We make our own rub that we put on our brisket.
Have you used commercial stuff before, or you've always been...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's tons of good ones out there.
Ryan, making your own rub, or are you buying somebody's?
Guns hot. Let them do the guessing work for you.
All right. And Mike, you make your own rub just like you make your injections, or you're using somebody else's?
We make our own rub, and actually, it's John Willingham's. It's in his book, Championship Barbecue, and we've used it ever since I can remember. I think 2004 or 5. I think the only substitute he uses wet mustard. We put dry mustard in it. I don't like to slather. Let me go back a minute here and explain why I don't put the rub on until the last minute.
Sure.
We used to do that with the ribs and everything, and we would find that when we took them out of the package or the bag that we put them in, there's a lot of liquid in there, and I think you put salt and sugar on something, I think it pulls a lot of moisture out, and I'd rather just keep that in the meat. That's why I got in the habit. I don't put rub on anything until right before we cook it anymore.
All right. Let me go back to Scott for this question. Is the rub that you're using completely different than you would put on, let's say, rib or pork?
Yes. Yeah, it's totally different.
What about you, Ryan?
Yep, it's a different rub than I put on either of those. Yep.
And Mike, I'm assuming you're not using the John Willingham brisket rub on your ribs or your butts?
No, we use 4 different rubs. I go from kosher salt on my pork, the John Willingham rub on my brisket. We do use head country on our ribs, although we switch back and forth. We've got our own rub, too, for ribs. And in chicken, we have our own rub.
All right, guys, one more question here before we do another quick break, and then we'll get into the cooking portion. Ryan, is there anything else in the prep portion of brisket that you're doing that I haven't asked you about yet?
Not that I can think of. I'll add it in later if I think of something.
There you go. Scott, anything else that you're doing prep-wise?
I don't think so. I think you got it.
All right, and Mike, anything else that you're doing prep-wise that we haven't talked about?
Well, the only thing I don't know if I mentioned is I trim just about all the fat off of it. Makes it cook quicker.
Didn't mention that, but duly noted. So that's like where that, what did you say, was like 4 or 5 pounds of fat that you're trimming off of the brisket? Did you say that earlier, something like that?
No, I don't think that. No, maybe 2
pounds?
3 pounds at the most. It depends on the size of the brisket. A real big brisket, you'll have quite a bit of fat. On some of the smaller ones, you might only have a half a pound or so. It just depends on the size.
All right, so there you go. You have the prep portion all set and done. We're going to come back and getting into the cooking portion here in just a couple minutes. Guys, go ahead and hang back for me, refresh your drinks, or do whatever it is. Let me quickly tell you about, I know I always get the weird looks when I talk about this sponsor, Stephen DeFranco from Stephen DeFranco's Jeweler. First of all, right here, local company in Cleveland, just in Willoughby, which is just east of me in downtown. And look, you know, we're guys, you know, a lot of us, especially the barbecue guys, not necessarily blingy, as it were. Look at this guy trying to get a big plug-in for Blind Parrot Cooking Team. Look at that. Either that or he's trying to fix his hard drive. There's just not a lot of stuff that we can put on without looking feminine or people question certain things, if you know what I mean. One of the things you can get into, watches, right? So if you're looking for something for yourself, maybe you want to drop a hint to the wife or the girlfriend or same-sex lover, whatever it is that you got. How about a watch, an Accutron, a Citizen, or we have a Cottage watchmaker right here in Cleveland, just on the west side. And he makes them all by hand. They're all numbered, and they're absolutely fabulous. But here's the deal. So normally I would sit here and tell you, you want to go buy a watch, but look, you're going to be spending, like the watch that I have is stickered at like $1,000. There's no way in hell that I would ever walk into a jewelry store and buy a $1,000 watch and buy it. Never. It would just never happen. But look, here's the deal. You know that guy that goes, it's all right, I know somebody. Well, we know somebody. It's Stephen DeFranco at Stephen DeFranco's Jeweler. So here's what you do. You go to the website, StephenDeFranco.com. And then you look at all the inventory he's got. Maybe you're not watch guy, but you want to buy a set of earrings for your wife or a necklace, or you're in the doghouse and you need to work your way back into at least the house, then the couch, then the bedroom at some point. Stephen DeFranco's got you covered in a whole bunch of different ways. So you go to StephenDeFranco.com, you look at the whole inventory. And then once you find something you like, you lob him a phone call directly, 440-943-2700. That's 440-943-2700. You say, Steve, my name is Scott or Ryan or Mike or Tim or Bob or Sue. I've screwed up. My wife is mad at me. I need to go over the top here and win her back, and I'm looking at X prop. What can you do? I'm a barbecue brother. I listen to the show. Let the savings ensue, folks. He ships to you for free. We'll have a great conversation for you. But he is a guy that is entrenched in this industry. He's an independent owned. He's not looking to make money off the backs of other middlemen and all this other stuff. StephenDeFranco.com, 440-943-2700. When you see what you like, get it. Save money, for crying out loud. I'm here to save you money. I'm here to give you great brisket tips, too. Well, not me, but my three panelists are. We're going to do that here in about 18 seconds. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Get in the smoke. Call 877-448-0433 to get on the air. Now, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, coming up on 35 past the hour. This is the Brisket Roundtable. We have Mike Wozniak from QI. This guy's going crazy. Look at this. That looked like a little glass pig or something. We have Ryan Newstrom, Big T's Q Crew. We have Scott Key, Little Pigtown. And we're going to get into the cooking portion here. Mike showing off hats and glass pigs. Is it a glass pig, Mike?
Ceramic.
Ceramic, of course. Was that like a reserve grand or a grand championship trophy that you've gotten in one of your many wins?
I think it's just a piggy bank that we got a lot of pig motif here at the house.
Imagine that, right? Barbecue guy.
Yeah, we're decorating an early barbecue.
All right, so let's move on to the cooking section. We've prepped the brisket, and we're getting ready to put it on. Ryan, we'll go ahead and start with you, Pitmaster Big T's Q Crew. What time are you putting your brisket on for competition?
If I may, during your break, I thought of something as far as prep goes that I think I left out. Okay, can I go back there for a second?
Yes,
all right.
Of course.
As far as age goes, I think beef can be benefited from a little aging, and we wet age our briskets. You have to be very careful when you do this, obviously, but anywhere from 21 to 50 days. I think you can overage a brisket, so we tend to err on the side of less age rather than more age. But I just wanted to throw that in there quick.
Anybody else wet aging, Mike or Scott?
Yeah, we age. You can age them a long damn time. Last year we had some. We got a walk-in cooler. It's like 32, 33 degrees in the bottom.
Jeez.
And there were some briskets down there at the bottom that had been in there since like September. And we made pastrami out of them. And as long as the cryovac wasn't broke, they were fine. So you can age them a long damn time. But if you pop them open and they stink, you got to throw them out.
What about you, Scott?
No, I think they're already wet aged when they come. I believe is how they do it over there at Snake River. It's like 26 days or something, then they freeze it and send it to you. But so I don't do any. I mean, I've let them sit in the fridge for, if I had one come in if I ordered two of them and had one of them come in, I burned it 1 week and then the next week I had another one. I've let it sit in there for an extra week or two and then just used it. So I guess you could consider that wet aging a week or two on top of the 26.
All right, so let's go ahead and go back to Ryan, and let me ask you when you're putting your brisket on for competitions.
Yeah, when we were cooking on the bullets, I'd throw them on at 8:30 at night, low and slow. And now, Jambos, they like the hotter heat. They work better in the hotter heat. So whatever cooker you got, I tell people, you got to go to where your cooker likes to cook and adjust your temperature and your times accordingly. So the Jambo we're cooking at 275, and I throw the big meats on at 3 o'clock in the morning.
All right. Well, what about you, Scott?
I actually throw mine on at 3:30 in the morning.
And Mike?
Yeah, about 3:30, depending on the size. If it's a big one, 3:30, and then I flip it after 2 hours, and then wrap it after 4.
Now, are you allotting a certain amount of time, or are you looking for color or the right shade of the moon or something like that? And we'll start with Mike.
Well, I didn't get that question. You were breaking up on me here a little bit.
Oh, like are you allotting a certain amount of time for that brisket to cook in? So if you hit X amount, you're going to take that son of a bitch off regardless, or not so much?
Yeah, generally I just go by time. I go like 2 hours on the meat side down, 2 hours on the point side down, and then at about 7:30 I wrap it, and it just is going to sit there. And if it's a smaller brisket, it's going to be done at 8:30. If it's a bigger brisket, it might be done closer to 9:30. And when we hit the magic number, I pull it off and put it in the Cambro, and I don't look at it again until it's about 10:30. Separate it out.
Ryan, are you allotting for a certain amount of time, or is it done when it's done?
Generally, about 3.5 to 4.5 hours. I'm looking for color on there, and I'll take them off and wrap them when I think they look really good. Which is, it's hard to explain. A deep mahogany color, generally speaking, what I'm looking for. But when you know.
Scott, are you allotting a certain amount of time for that to cook?
Yeah, mine's about 4 to 5 hours, somewhere in between there when I pull them off and wrap them. I guess I've just gotten used to the timing. It used to be because of color I was always looking at it, but it seems to always be right in that same time frame when I wrap them.
All right, next question here is, and we'll stick with Scott since we're right here. What kind of a wood are you using for smoke flavor, and is it different for the other cuts of meat, or is it the same, all the way through?
No, I like my pit at 3 in the morning with about 4 pounds of lump charcoal, and then I burn nothing but pecan wood from that point forward on all my meats.
Ryan, wood for smoke flavor?
Yep. I get her started with a bed of coal, just like Scott, and then just like Scott, I get some pecan wood down in his country in Oklahoma, and that's what we're cooking with, and just a touch of cherry as well.
Mike, you are doing charcoal, as you said, on your Peoria custom cooker. Are you using wood chunks, or are you just skipping wood altogether? Where are you at?
I skip wood altogether. Now, I put my pork, and I do pork low and slow. I put it on the bottom level of the cooker at 210, and it cooks all night. So the cooker's going, and at 3:30, I have my wife get up, and she cranks the temp up while I'm prepping the brisket. And then when I get in there, I throw a bunch of wicked good charcoal on. It's got big chunks in it, and they're not thoroughly burned down to charcoal, so it gives us some nice flavor.
Were you using wood at some point for flavor, and you've just got out of that, or just never?
We used to burn wood years ago, but I'll tell you what, if your wood is not dry enough, or if it's not hot enough when you put it in there, the best thing is to have really dry wood and even preheat it. I know the guys in the Jambos can do that. They can stick it off to the side, preheat it. There's a lot of nasty stuff in wood, and you can evidence that by just looking at the lid of somebody's cooker that burns wood at the wrong temperature. Now the Jambo guys, they burn at 275, and they're burning pretty clean. But if you get somebody that burns like 225 as wood at that temperature, they get a lot of creosote and stuff, and it's getting on the cooker, it's getting on the meat. So I figure the charcoal, all the bad stuff's already burnt out of it, and I just avoid this situation. And I live on a farm. I got lots of wood if I wanted to burn it. I got white oak, red oak. We have, maple if you want to cook pork that way, and cherry and stuff like that. But I just prefer not to use it.
All right, Ryan, we'll go back to you for this one. What temperature are you cooking brisket at?
Yeah, like I said before, 275 to 285. Anywhere in between there, I'm happy with the Jambo.
Was there a point when you were experimenting with different temperature ranges with your cookers?
Well, on the bullets, we were cooking low and slow, 225. It just likes that temperature. I could run a manual, no problem. I mean, we got a stoker after half of our first season, just so I could get sleep at night. But those bullets, they like that 225 to 250. So that's what I was running them at.
Scott, what do you running temperature wise during your brisket cook?
3 to 3 1/4, somewhere in there during the 5 hours while we wrap it. Before we wrap it, I should say.
Did you ever cook at a lower temperature?
When I used to cook on my stumps, I cooked a little bit lower, about 265, 275, somewhere in there is where I would cook brisket. But once I got the Jambo, it's got a mind of its own. I'm sure Ryan will attest to that, and it goes where it wants to go, and you just got to get used to cooking with it.
Mike, you were a 325 guy a little bit earlier, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 325, and sometimes we'll go down to 310. I cook ribs at 310, but if it's a smaller brisket, I'll go 310 just to slow it down a little bit. I don't want it to cook too quick. I've had some of these smaller briskets get done way too early, and I think it cooks the flavor right out of them. And that's why we look for the big, thick ones.
Did you ever cook at a different temperature, or have you ever experimented outside of that 325, 310 range?
Well, not for a long time. I've been cooking 12 years, and I know at one time we did cook when I had the Horizon and I didn't have the Gurus. I think I would cook at 250. And we had good product back then, and I knew how to regulate those. But there again, I'd get the creosote buildup and stuff in the inside of the cooker. And when you start to cook at 275 on up, your cooker stays a lot cleaner, and you're burning all the volatiles out of the wood or charcoal, and you're not getting that all over your meat.
All right, we'll go back to Scott for this. At any point during the cook, are you basting or mopping or spraying the brisket?
No, I don't. I don't touch it, to be honest with you. I throw it on there, and until I wrap it, I never even open the pit until I wrap it.
Had you ever done any of that stuff before, or never?
No, not on a brisket. I've squirted ribs and all that stuff down, but I've never basted or hosed down a brisket.
Mike, any basting, mopping, or spraying during your brisket cook?
You asking me?
Yes, Mike, sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what, my theory is on who are you talking to, me?
Yes, yeah. Mike.
Yes. on brisket, anything you're cooking that hot, you don't spray like apple juice on it because it'll caramelize the sugars. So if you want to base something, you have to use something with fat in it that can take the high temp. Lard is always good. It's always good to have a little pan of lard inside your cooker with a brush. You can brush it right on.
Ryan, basting, mopping, spraying?
Nope, just like Scott, shut the lid and I open it when I'm ready to wrap.
All right, so we've pretty much come to a conclusion here, which is my next question, that everybody's wrapping. Is this an internal temperature thing? Is it a color and internal temperature thing? Is it only a color thing? And we'll start with Ryan.
Well, it's a function of both, really. With the cooking process that I'm rolling now, it's a lot of color. I'm not so concerned of it being in a certain range at that point. But like before, when I was cooking on the bullets, I needed to cook it for a specifically long period of time to get enough bark on it. But if you don't wrap it soon enough, it's going to release a lot more moisture than you want it to. So you're trying to find that sweet spot. For us, like when we're pulling our briskets off now, they're anywhere between 150 and 165 when we're wrapping.
Scott, are you just looking for color? Are you looking for internal temperature when you're wrapping?
I've never actually temped one of mine when I wrap it. I'm right in the same time zone that Ryan's playing in, but I'm sure mine's got to be right in that same temperature he's talking about, but I've never temped it. So what actually started all that, the timing on it, was because of the color. So I'm assuming, I'll just say it's color-based is the reason I'm wrapping it when I'm wrapping it.
Mike, are you looking at color? Are you looking at temperature? Are you looking at a combination of both when you're wrapping?
I just go strictly by time because I like to get my sleep. I'm getting older. I tried a few times to get up at 3:30 and just stay up, but I have to go back to bed and get my 2 hours here and 2 hours there. So we just at 7:30 I wrap it, and I don't look at anything. I just put it in there, and then we check the final temperature, and that's when we pull it out of the foil. No, I just go strictly by time.
All right, so let me ask you this question. Before you close up that foil, are you adding any type of a liquid, or are you putting a bunch of lard in there or anything like that, Mike, before you close up the foil, or you just wrap it and let it go?
We put a little salt on it, kosher. I use kosher salt and everything. I think beef needs to have a salty flavor. I don't like to use anything with too much liquid. You tend to steam the meat. You're better off not putting too much in the foil. You're going to get some natural juices, and what little comes out of the foil, we get a half a cup or something. That's the greatest stuff in the world for slathering back on the slices, natural juice. And I'll tell you, we've tried cooking without foil. I don't like to use foil. I don't use it on ribs. I don't use it on my pork slicers. I do use it on my pork pullers, but I tried to cook briskets before without foil. And I never could figure out how to do it. I tried it about 10 different ways, and you get a dry product.
All right. Ryan, adding anything into the foil when you're wrapping up?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it as another opportunity to add another flavor dynamic to the beef. We use our own version of Rick's Sinful Marinade. If people that don't know on the show want to just Google Rick's Sinful Marinade, it'll come right up. It's just a beer base marinade. I will say pay attention to the kind of beer that you use. You want to use a type of beer that complements the beef. If you're putting on a can of Natty Ice on your brisket, it's probably not going to turn out the best. So,
Scott, are you adding anything to the foil before you wrap it up and put it back in?
I actually stick a stick of butter in the foil before I put the brisket back in there.
Really?
Yeah. I'll slice it in 4 little slices and put it in there and set the brisket on it.
Man, sounds good. Butter's good, right?
You can't go wrong with butter. I mean, you put butter on anything.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I'm assuming, and if you do this, raise your hand and we'll go to you. But I'm assuming nobody is separating a point and flat at this point. It goes in whole, stays in whole until the finish. All right, nobody's raising their hand, so that's good. So the next question is this, Mike. What target temperature are you shooting for finish?
I look for 205. It's hard to, when you're talking about a piece of meat that's not, consistent in its thickness anywhere. So that's when we actually take off and wrap it, I let it sit just for about 15, 20 minutes to let the heat redistribute, and then we put it back on. But dead center, sometimes I'll only be at like 190, 195, and then the external parts of the brisket and the flat will be 205. But once you start going over 205 in the flat, you're starting to really drive the flavor. So that's when we pull it.
Ryan, what temperature are you pulling at?
Yeah, pretty much generally just like Mike said. You want to average, where you're poking that brisket. If you're poking in different parts, around the edge, you're going to be hotter. So you want to kind of get an average, and mostly go by feel. But I'll use one of those ThermoWorks oven thermometers. I'll put those in when I wrap them, and I'll set the alarm for 203, and I'll sometimes check it a little bit earlier, depending on, like Mike said, on the thickness of the flat, or later. Some people need to know, as far as temps goes, as far as I understand, in my experience, which compared to the other people on the show is somewhat limited, but the hotter you cook, the hotter the finishing temp generally. Uh-huh. For a big meat, so you really want to go by feel at that point until you find where you're, for your specific cooker, for the specific temp you're cooking, the money spot, the temperature that's going to yield you the best results for your specific cooker.
Scott, what are you looking for pull temp at?
This is one of those you're going to ask the question, why do you do this? But it's just one of those things I do. So there it is. I actually temp mine in the point. I don't temp mine ever in the flat. And I've always done this. And it's right where the point and the flat come together and meet. And it's about 198 is what I'm looking for. But it's a total feel thing, like Ryan's saying. Because sometimes it's a gut check. Temperature's not right, but you got that butter feel, and you got to make up your mind which way you're going to go with it. But I've always temped in that same spot right on the little ramp. And about 198 is what I'm shooting for. I'm assuming that translates to probably about what they're saying, 205, 206 in the flat.
Yeah, probably safe to say there. All three of you guys are making burned ends, so that's something we don't need to probably go through and ask. That's probably going in the turn-in box. So let me ask this question, Mike. We'll go back to you. Are you looking for the question that I asked as far as, are you allotting X amount of time to cook? Are you allotting X amount of time to hold the brisket? Because a lot of cooks are always talking about, the whole time. Do you need to have that brisket sit for X amount of time before you feel really good about it?
I believe so. I mean, we pull our pork at 10 and unwrap. The one of my unwrap, the other one, my slicers, I don't unwrap. They've never wrapped. As soon as we're done with that, we take our brisket, foil, it's been sitting in the Cambro, and then I separate it. We then put it in the bottom of the Peoria cooker, and the very bottom of the Peoria cooker at this time is about 170 degrees, and that's a perfect temperature to hold both the pork and the brisket at. And so it just sits down there, and it re-barks up. But, once you've had meat in foil and you got moisture in there, you kind of lose some of your bark. So I'll have that flat sitting up in that 170-degree bottom, and we'll put a little sauce on it, and it'll start to re-bark up. And I think that time that it spends from, say about 10, 15 to we bring it in at right about noon, that other hour and a half sitting there, I think it does it a lot of good. It softens it up. I always like, maybe Scott will agree with me, maybe Ryan will agree with me, when you pick that brisket up in foil, it'll have a kind of a soft, jello-y, maybe almost like a woman's breast feel to it.
Ooh, hey-o, I know what that feels like.
That's what I look for.
Nice.
Ryan, are you allotting for a certain amount of hold time after the cook is done?
What was that again, Ryan?
Thanks. We are. I like them done. I don't like them done too early. A lot of guys try to get them done, 8. I like them done anywhere between 10 and 11 is kind of where we've found our optimal holding time. And I'll let them breathe a bit, I'll let the steam out, and I'll put them in the Cambros, and they'll stay there until turn-in time.
All right, so Scott, are you looking for X amount of time to hold before you want to get after it?
Mine normally are in the Cambro sometime between, I'd say, 9:30 and 10:30, probably within that hour window. And they sit until we pull them out right before turn-ins. I mean, right after pork, we pull it out and bring it in and open it up and let it dry out a little bit and get to slicing.
All right, so, I mean, that pretty much is going to wrap up the cooking portion. I mean, as far as the post-cook things, I mean, obviously everybody's building boxes. Do you guys have teammates that are building boxes for you, or you guys take an active part in that? What about you, Mike?
My wife builds 2.5 boxes, and I build 1.5. She gets the base done for the chicken and the brisket, half of the rib box, and I have to do the rest because she doesn't like to do parsley. And then I do all the pork box because it's kind of complicated, and she doesn't want to mess with it.
Ryan, do you have designated boxers?
Yeah, my most amazing wife, Sonia, has always made the boxes for me, so I'm very lucky.
Scott, do you have boxers too?
Yeah, about a year ago, I got out of the box making business, and my wife and little girl take care of that now for me, so I act like it never happens.
Now, let me ask this.
I don't say shit.
I mean, you guys say, or you guys are in Kansas City Barbecue Society, and I'm not looking to make a diatribe or have anybody give a dissertation on this. Maybe you don't even give a shit about it, but the garnish kind of stands in my mind in this like obscure thing or like purgatory. It's listed as optional. It's not mandatory. Would you like to see it either voted in as mandatory or voted, out altogether versus just leaving it in this optional state? I can't imagine that any one of you three would decide that, hey, this is a great competition where I'm going to decide to not garnish a box and feel pretty good about your chances turning in. Mike, what do you think about that?
Well, I know it's optional, and until somebody consistently wins without garnish, I'm putting it in the box. Realistically, I would like to see garnish done away with. The last thing, all of our meat is bought for this competition. We're going up to, with Ryan, we're going to go up to Rockford, Illinois, to the Sam's Regional.
Yeah.
All of our meat's been bought, and I've got some of it trimmed. Tomorrow, before we get ready to pack up, I have to go and buy, some lettuce and some parsley. It's always an extra trip, and we buy. I don't know how much of it. 90% of it goes in the damn garbage. It's just wasted. It's easier to build a box without it. And people say, well, your stuff will move around. I tell you what, we've done a contest where there's no garnish allowed, like the Douglas, Georgia contest, and we did a propane cook-off one time. And all you do is cut little slices of meat here or there. You can poke them under there and hold your meat fine. But until the rule is garnish is done away with, or somebody wins consistently, we're going to keep doing it.
Ryan, would you like to see garnish brought off of the purgatory it sits in?
Mike, you can't. You don't have any chickens you can feed your extra parsley to. That's what we do.
I don't own any chickens. The cats and dogs are not vegetarians.
Well, I'll take your parsley this week and we feed it to the chickens. I personally, I like the look of that nice green frame around my perfectly prepared meat. I aesthetically, it appeals to me. And I've done one contest with where garnish was not allowed. And I was like totally lost in that world. And I didn't think anything looked good. And maybe it's just because I was used to the way the parsley box looks, but I know it's a lot of extra work, and it's a pain for everybody that has to do it. Luckily, my wife is the one that bears that burden. But I think the meat aesthetically looks better with the garnish around it.
Scott, would you like to see a definite yes or a definite no on garnish?
I don't know. I mean, it almost frames the box and the meat. It makes it look so much more pleasant when you have the garnish in there. And we're so used to doing it that I don't know that I would change until, if they cast it off on everybody, and no one could use garnish, then yeah, I'm assuming we'd have to rethink the way we do things. But I'm not really opposed to garnish. I think it's okay.
All right. Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Well, what'll happen one of these days, I suspect, is that we'll get a table of 6 judges sick with E. coli from lettuce that hasn't been washed. It's funny. We have all these rules in KCBS on how you have to take care of the meat and the temperatures you have to hold it at. But with garnish, there's no rules that you have to wash it or keep it refrigerated. I suspect some of it comes from South America, and the people that pick it are wiping their ass with some of the leaves as they go to take a dump out in the field. So that's probably what's going to happen these days. And I admit the box looks better with garnish, but there again, I prefer it's just more work.
I guess the reason I continue to go back to the question is because it is listed as optional. If it's you have to garnish a box, fine, everybody's going to do it. It's part of the rules, and you're done. If it's not, nobody's going to do it. And it's not when it's optional. I continue to find, and I'm going to be devil's advocate because I'm an idiot talk show host that doesn't compete, and this is what I can talk about because I'm an idiot. But when it's optional, to me, if I'm opening the box and you 3 are turning it in with garnish, and I'm turning it in without garnish, there should be visually to the judge no discrepancy whatsoever between my naked box and your garnish box if mine tastes better than yours. And we all know that that's complete horseshit. I'm going to get scored down because I don't have green in my box. And that's where my point of contention is with the optional category. Put it in, put it out, but at least one way or the other so I can stop talking about it. Nobody wants to hear me talk about this, for crying out loud. All right, guys, before I let you go, I want to do a little self-promotion for you guys. We'll start with Mike. Obviously, you're going to be at the regional event. What else is going on with QOW that you can tell us about that you'd like to get out there?
Well, I don't know. We've got a big Western trip planned. We're going to head up after the Sam's Club. We're heading up to Rochester, Minnesota, and I believe Ryan will be at that one. From there, we'll leave and do a contest at the Billings, Montana. It's a state fair there. It's actually a Wednesday-Thursday contest.
Wow.
And we leave there and do a Friday-Saturday contest in Worland, Wyoming. So we're going to do 3 contests in 10 days, and that'll be our big trip for the summer. And then we come home and cook close to home until the Royal, and hopefully we might get lucky and draw into the Jack. Who knows? And that's just the same old stuff every year.
Ryan, again, you're going to be at Rockford as well. Anything else going on with Big T's Q Crew that you'd like to talk about tonight?
No, not really. I mean, we're going to like Mike said, we're going to be up in Rochester the week after, and then head down to Excelsior Springs. We were fortunate enough to win the Apple Blossom Barbecue earlier this spring, and along with Excelsior Springs, they have the Northwest Missouri State Grand Championship, where it's the combined scores with both over both contests. And we actually were fortunate enough to win that last year, so we'll hopefully do well enough to do that again this year. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And then Albert Lee, the Big Island Barbecue, we love that, going up there to that contest. Love going up to Minnesota in general. My dad lives up there, and so we'll be up there 2 of the next 3 weeks. So.
And then we'll end with Scott Key, Little Pigtown. What's happening over at LPT?
Well, this weekend we're going to take one off so Ryan can run off and get more points for me to chase him down on. And then I got to go to
points. There's no.
We're going to go to
yeah.
Then we're going to go to Dillon, Colorado, and I think we come back to Emporia, Kansas, and I don't remember where we go. A couple more in Kansas, I think. But it's just how it is the end of the year. Everybody's running after anyone they can, trying to catch them.
Scott, will you be making a concerted effort for Team of the Year?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think we're in a position where we have to see where it goes from here. Absolutely.
Mike?
You know what? We didn't do enough big contests this year. It's pretty remote chance. I just wanted to point out to Scott that that neither Ryan or I will be getting any brisket points this week because the regional there's no points for it.
Correct. That is correct.
This would be your chance. Your
God.
chance to of this.
You should,
even though
Scott, you should not take this week off.
I know.
Here.
Damn it.
Point ahead of me.
So maybe I can bird dog into one somehow.
No doubt. We'll see. All right, so we have Mike Wozniak from QOW, Ryan Newstrom, Big T's Q Crew, and Scott Key from Little Pigtown. Guys, certainly appreciate you taking this hour plus with me tonight talking about your brisket techniques, and huge instant chat room as well going crazy about it. So, again, appreciate you freely giving up the information, and continued success to all you guys this weekend and for the rest of the competition season.
Very cool.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, guys, take care. There they are. The big three. Mike Wozniak, Ryan Newstrom, and Scott Key, Little Pigtown. I'm right here. All right, got to do this read real quick. For Barbecuers Delight wood pellets, of course. Now, I have a pellet-fired cooker. Of course I do. So I'm thinking, man, I need to really figure it out. Where am I going to go for wood pellets? Not even a question. Of course I'm going to go to Candy Weaver and Barbecuers Delight wood pellets. Of course I am. Now, you might be asking yourself, what about these Barbecuers Delight wood pellets? These are made with this cellular structure. All of the air is evacuated, thus concentrating the wood into a very dense form. It's much denser than natural trees. And when you compare it to the other wood flavor enhancers, pellets will yield a more intense smoke more quickly, which seals the food in, or which seals that flavor in. Now, since pellets have been processed from sawdust, it eliminates any of the contaminations that might be present as well. And this process produces a sterile smoking wood product of consistent quality. Pellets easy to use since you don't soak in water prior to use. And you can blend them for different flavor profiles all across the world. Here's what you need to do. Go buy yourself some Barbecuers Delight wood pellets, bbqrsdelight.com. Check out all the flavors they have, and stop fussing with the sticks and the chunks. Backyard warriors and competition cooks alike agree that Barbecuers Delight makes the best pellets out there. We're wrapping up quickly, and by quickly I mean super quickly. Stick around, we'll be right back.
Get in the smoke. Call 877-448-0433 to get on the air. Now, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, we are back. Three Eyes Barbecue weighing in, saying that their briskets are like shoe leather. Yeah, right. You just won another one. My math might be off, Dan, but that might be like 6 out of the last 7 that you've been in, or 6 out of the last 8 that you've won. Not too bad, partner. Doing something right. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. First hour, all the way back in the first hour, we had Mike McDearman. Remember Mike? Talked about steak cooking, his recipe for properly cooking steak, backing off the heat, preheating the grill to 325 to 350, grilling it at that point from fridge to grill, 5 to 7 minutes on the first side. Then you flip it, and you go to 142 degrees internal temperature on that second side. So you're cooking at internal temperature only. And then you let it rest 5 to 7 minutes. And then the monster barbecue brisket competition roundtable. Ryan Newstrom, Mike Wozniak from QOW, Ryan Newstrom from Big T's Q Crew, and Scott Key from Little Pigtown. Breaking it all down. Didn't leave one feather out. So go back and get it. Sure to be a huge downloaded show as usual. Big crowd tonight on the chat room as well. It's backed off a little bit. Look, big show next week already. Good things lined up. If you use raw cast iron grates, let me help you control the rust or the rusty grill grate population. Raw cast iron can rust easily when not taken care of. Every time you use it, as it starts to cool down, hit a little bit of Pam, a little Crisco, let it burn in. You're going to get years of rust-free service. You can pass them right down to your kids, just like Mike and I were talking about a little earlier. Also, September 11th, 2001, I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.